listeners and viewers. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, my brother. How you doing?
Yes, Alhamdulillah. It's, I've actually just got back from Juma prayers.
All right. What time is it, Ammar, in Saudi?
It's 6 minutes past 1.
All right.
So 3 hours ahead the UK. So it was good that I was able to participate in local cultural and religious activities. So when it's
is it busy, the Jummah?
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, but it's the one place where there's a mosque on every single corner. So my original intention was to go to a particular one, and then timings, because it was 11:37 here.
Oh, Jummah, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
11:37. So, so I wonder why that is.
Well, it must be something to do with the timings. I know that in the UK, the first one's starting at 12:30 today. So I think the times have moved forward. I don't know if it's globally, but it is for sure earlier than what it usually is. I've never been to one that early before, though. I think the earliest I've probably been to is probably 12.
Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, it's all happening here, Jalf. It's incredible. It is. So this week, been at BibanGlobal, the global entrepreneur, basically gathering, is what it is. And but before we get into the show, probably wanted to just officially, have you officially launched your amazing new venture?
Not officially, Ammar. Officially on the 18th. Unofficially, we're going to let some guests who have been very eager and emailing us from a few weeks to come in and sample what we're doing from this evening. So we're going to do very limited reservations from tonight onwards.
Okay. And are we able to share? Are we able to share with our listeners and viewers?
Yeah.
Given the fact that I'm actually sat in the Middle East as well.
Of course, we can share whatever. We're all ready to go. We had a couple of really great events over the last few days. I was just happiest that you were the first person to dine with the family.
Never don't tell your family that. Obviously, I was like, we were incredibly embarrassed.
They're quite happy about that as well. So it's they're quite happy about that. So Ammar got in just about an hour before my family got in, and interestingly, my family we moved the event from lunch to early afternoon because we had the Bangladeshi embassy. That's what you would call it. The High Commissioners coming into Newcastle Community Centre to for those that need some official documents signed and stamped, and apparently it was absolute carnage to the point where there was a queuing system that no one kind of agreed to, and everyone just went in creating chaos. And by the time some of the family members left, whilst we did have a slightly different arrangement, they managed to invite them to the house and get some of the documents signed, but they still needed stamped, and that got so delayed that they came in late, and it was just nice to be able to sit with you, Ammar, and then so we've done that on Sunday. We did what did we do on a Monday? We did an event.
So forgive me, Jalf, because some people won't know what we're talking about because we've jumped straight in. But I think forget the rest of our show and things like that. This is such a significant achievement and celebration of culinary experience and expertise. So what I'm talking about, what I'm keen to celebrate, because Jalf doesn't do this at all, is the launch of Jalf's newest venture. And this is something extra special. And every single time Jalf opens up a new food venue, it pushes the boundaries both from a food standard perspective, but also the overall experience of the venue, the stories behind it, and the authenticity of it. So, Jalf, without further ado, please announce the name and the background to your wonderful extra special venue, please.
So we've been working on a new concept. To be honest, I first thought about it around about 2018. I went, my favorite restaurant in London, it was a place called Babaji. It was owned by Alan Yao, one of the greatest restaurateurs in this country. He was behind Wagamama. He created, when he built about 4 to 5 Wagamamas, he then sold it onto the big chains, and they then took that worldwide. He opened another restaurant called Hakkasan, really famous, well known, and there's a couple in Mayfair. There's others around the world, to Shanghai, to New York, to Dubai. He did Yo Tacha, Busaba. But Babaji was a Turkish restaurant, Ammar. And you go in, there's lots of Turkish restaurants around the country, but this particular one was just so unique. You had all the breads makers right at the front, so you can see the breads being made. They were doing all the kebabs at the front, which is, lots and lots of places do that. But the fact is that when you look at it aesthetically, it had so much kind of finesse, and it gave you such a feel-good factor because the detail that they followed. And then when you got someone making the fresh breads, it's got something magic about the fresh breads and the kebabs being made. You see it all around the Middle East, whether you're in Turkey or all of those other countries where the food is just so amazing. And the salads were just great. The rice was so tasty. We've been having rice all of our lives, but I think the Middle Eastern rice has just it's a bit buttery. It's just got something really kind of extra fluffy and tasty about it. So one day I went and that restaurant was shut down. And I said to my brother, I said, hey, what's up with... Yeah, it's shut down in London. It was on Wardour Street, right in the heart of Soho. And then I said to my brother, do you know what? Let's open that in Newcastle. So because if it was in Newcastle, it would absolutely smash it. So that shut down. That stayed in my head since that moment. We then opened Kai Kai. I did think about it when I was doing Kai Kai. Before Kai Kai was going to be Kai Kai. It was going to be that. I just wasn't ready to do it properly. And I started doing the research. But to do research on cuisine and understand it properly, it takes a good few years if you want to do it right. So for the last 6 years or so, whilst I haven't been doing research every day, but it's been in the periphery of my mind, and I love to understand food. So I've been learning about all of that food. And what transpires is that food, whether it be Turkish, whether it be Persian, or whether it be from the area of the Middle East, such as Lebanon and Syria and Palestine, the area of the Levant, the food is just so delicately tasty. It's totally different to our cuisines from the Indian subcontinent. And I really every time I want to go to an alternative cuisine, I would always pick that. A lot of the family members may go to have a pizza, but pizza's just it's so standardized. Whereas the Middle Eastern cuisine, if you go to the ones on the Westgate Road, you actually go and have a different enjoyable experience. And I feel I appreciate the cooking a little bit more. The kebabs and the salads. I think the salads are brilliant. So we kind of looked at it and we felt that there's a massive opportunity in Newcastle. There was an opportunity in Newcastle in 2018 onwards. So for the last 6 years, there hasn't been any movement in the market. And we just felt that, there was that opportunity to do something. So we then put our heads together. And just certain things fell into place. My friends at By the River, Trap Hall, they offered me a site. and that didn't quite work out, but that got the ball rolling. And it was only Ammar from around about February, you know, where we created the brand to begin with, locked that down. And there's a great story about it. I don't want to take too much of your time going through it.
No. Don't be so silly. Tell us the story of the backstory.
I mean, so there was a little bit of a turn from what we were wanting to do in 2018 to 24, and that's because you would have met Federico, one of our guys, been with us for many, many years, like a really loyal, good, honest kid. But his mother's Italian, his father's Persian. So he was really passionate about Persian cuisine, and he used to tell us so much about it. And our story evolved because of his influence as well. And we obviously have to make a business decision, but it was nice just to tweak it and change it. And that story around the Silk Road, Ammar, which is historically, it was the most, you know, they described it as it was like the historical networking route. It was social media back in the 11th century where they were bringing people together. The road and the routes and the trading began, and the exchange of spices began, exchanges of meats began. And if you imagine back in the day in the UK, you would have chicken boiled with a bit of seasoning, but then you could have chicken boiled with lots of different spices. And that's big work because of the Silk Road. So the exchange of spices and those routes, if you imagine you have like all these nomads going around this route, and if you imagine that you do need to have a pit stop with all of your, you know, traders, or you've got your group from moving from a village to a village, or you're nomadic, you're going from an adventure and you don't know where you're going to end up. You just want to go and make a living. So you have these people on the Silk Roads, and at a distance, if you sow smoke, which translates as dude, that's a signal that there's a service station ahead. The service stations were called caravanserais. That's where you would go, take all of your horses, take all of your camels, take all of your people. You would go there, you would freshen up, you would get bathed and watered, but then you would have this food. And that food, if you imagine back in the day, you can only cook with coals, cook with wood, and you got all these people exchanging in different spices, and you got the locals that are making veggies. So you would have this hub of creating amazing food. And that's where our inspiration is from our story. The Silk Road, the caravanserais, and we focused on two regions: the region of Persia, where the Silk Road went through, then it went up close to the Mediterranean to the area of Levant. So we feel that we've picked the two best regions to pluck out this amazing food and bring it to Newcastle upon Tyne. So dude translates as smoke, but what was really interesting about the site where we are, Ammar, it's one of the oldest buildings in Newcastle upon Tyne, built in around about 1750. Around about 1850, and it was owned by a gentleman called William Dodds, and he had a printing business, and the building is called Charts because he would make charts for the sailors that they can take these maps on their travels when they were going around the world. So it just all felt so kind of surreal that we have an aged concept talking about travel, and we come to a location called Charts where they used to make charts for travelers in a venue which is almost 275 years old. It's such a lovely building. You can see all the exposed bricks from 250 years ago, and it's so solid and a beautiful quirky building right on the river front. I'm sat there right now and I can see the glass house. I've got the Tyne Bridge to my right. I've got the Millennium Bridge to the left, and the water's flowing, giving me a lot of peace and tranquility. So we just felt things were right, and we feel that we've done our analysis, we've done the due diligence. We never take anything for granted, Ammar. We feel that we've created a space that's unique to the city. We feel that we've created a restaurant that's going to be unlike any other. There's nothing like this as a brand anywhere else in the UK, because combining those two regions, and on top of that, to execute what we want to do, we've gone out and brought some of the best chefs in the world from Dubai and other places. And, you know, Colin Clegg, Ammar, he is one of the best regarded Middle Eastern chefs in the world, and he's here from Dubai for the for 3 weeks, and he's locking down all of our menus, and our head chefs have come from Dubai, and we've done some tastings. It's gone down really, really well. And let's see if the city embraces what we do.
Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly proud of you. I think it's wonderful. And that story that you've shared is typical of your patience and your positivity and your creativity. Constantly, as I said at the beginning, pushing the boundaries, the barriers, bringing something unique and exciting, something that nowhere else has done. But actually, I must admit, as I've grown older and my own palate has become, let's say, more seasoned, I sort of the food that I go to now tends to be, including the family, includes to be meat and salad, the bread and the meat, not overly spiced, not curry like. I mean, nothing compares to a curry, obviously, but the fact that you are able to eat Middle Eastern, Persian food pretty much at any time of the day, right, is what you can. And having been going to Turkey for decades now, enjoying the Turkish type of foods, having friends who have sort of various shawarma restaurants and things like that, with their incredibly tasty salads and complemented by bread and meat and particular types of soup. I think you're absolutely right. But you're not, and having been the first to experience it, I can say this. I can say this, and actually dressed like this, stars is. I feel as if I was almost, trekking across the desert just to have experienced your food. But I can say that the dishes that we sampled, and admittedly there was not a huge amount, but a sufficient amount. They were incredibly unique. They were tasty, and you wouldn't get them anywhere else. So hats off to you. And in, coincidentally, here in Saudi, it's the year of the camel. And I know that the camel features quite significantly, so I'm going to have to bring some camel-orientated memorabilia, authentic, back to you.
Bring if you find us a nice camel, Ammar, that I can put on a table. I've got a table here. Let me see if I can show it to you. You see this table there where you've got the little horse on there, right on the table.
No, I can't. You need to turn it round.
I've done it the wrong. Oh, hold on. That there. You see that?
Right. Yeah, nice table.
So yeah, we've got
I'm going to bring you. Camels,
got horses.
So yeah, I'll bring you a camel. Is what I will do. And there's some amazing businesses here. So very, very briefly, that whole old Silk Road entrepreneurialism is alive and kicking. It's being reinvigorated right here in Saudi. And it's an incredible pleasure and honor to have been invited by the government to come here and speak about enterprise and innovation. Jalf, 160,000 people all congregated in this huge venue that takes about an hour and a half to walk from one end to the other, right? It's like the biggest and the grandest celebration of entrepreneurship, innovation. The Global Entrepreneur World Cup is happening here. There's 24 businesses pitching every single day. And on Saturday, the same day that I'm a keynote speaker here on the main stage, is the celebratory. So the world's Entrepreneur World Cup is going to be presented on Saturday as well. I'm like in a sweet shop, is what I am. It's like the people that I'm meeting from globally, everyone's like really, really passionate. They're all entrepreneurs. They're all like, buzzing. And on the first day, there was like nearly $5 billion worth of deals done just on day one here.
Isn't it?
It's just crazy, and the buzz and the vibe, and meeting ministers, and I'm on a panel with some of the leading authorities from the world on incubators, accelerators, something that I've been delivering for 20 odd years. And just this morning at breakfast, met a couple of guys from Belgium, and we got talking about inclusion and food, and how food brings people and communities together, right? It's like breaking bread is arguably the most peaceful and peace-orientated thing that you can do anywhere in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that act of breaking bread and saying, okay, let's sit down. It doesn't matter what our differences are. And if you think of that Silk Road that you're referring to, the Silk Road, where nomads and there were particular nomadic tribes, they all had their own sort of cultural and religious elements. But across that, the caravan that brought those communities together. So what can people do, Jalf, to try and sample this amazing potential? What's the plans?
We're going to open, like I said, we're not opening it up fully until the 18th, until then, but we have got loads of email requests, and we are going to open tonight, tomorrow night, Sunday lunch. That's closed because we're doing another small family event. Monday we're closed, give the guys a rest. Tuesday we're going to open kind of dinner onwards, lunch and dinner onwards. So we're just taking a week or more to slowly make sure that we're ready, and hopefully by the 18th we must be ready when we officially open. But we need obviously so much interest. We're just going to do 30-40 a night, limit the numbers of the those that are the most curious and really just walking in when the builders are in and wanting to kind of see what's going on. So yeah, I think judging by what we've seen, I think there may be lots of walk-ins from the street, but like I said, we'll do numbers that we're comfortable with, and then from the 18th, the online reservations are already up. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. And let's, I mean, the other couple of nights, Ammar, we did have, after yourself, we did one on Monday with many of our staff. We did a Tuesday with local business people. We did one on Wednesday with some of the footballers and kind of the big businessy people. Graham Wiley.
Was that common knowledge? Is it? Are you allowed
It
to
was.
say?
I mean, they were so kind and they were so nice, and they were very complimentary of everything that we're doing. I was a bit embarrassed, to be honest, because Alan Shearer wanted to do like a media thing when he saw our people there, and I've never ever asked anyone to do anything, post or do this and that, because I feel that's something that I feel embarrassed asking for.
Yeah.
But some of them, they made some lovely comments on their own accord, which was captured by our cameras and stuff. And I don't know if we're going to put it out or not, because I think it's a bit too Jalf orientated. So probably not, to be honest. But I think generally,
no, but you should, Jalf. I mean,
yeah.
this is the big problem, right? Actually, I was having this conversation, and you have to. The issue, and the biggest issue with the world, like right now, is the levels of negativity. And unless we get back, or not even back, unless we start encouraging the celebration of individuals, and I know that we're conservative, and I know that we're humbled, and We don't ever want to make it about us or ourselves and all of these things. But actually, unless you celebrate what you've done and you're doing, other people will never ever aspire to do that. You're not sharing your story, and it's not your story, Jalf. Whilst you're leading this, it's your whole team story. It's the people that have helped, make this vision, this dream come to life. So I think it's really, really important to share, and having people like Alan Shearer, he's a celebrity. Why wouldn't you? I mean, Gordon Ramsay, all of these individuals are huge fans and followers of you. So take the credit. I don't think it's undeserved. I don't think it's unreasonable. And I think it's
I don't think it's
something that you need to do.
Yeah, but it is. So I think let's see, Ammar. I think obviously for now, people are seem to be enjoying the offering, but most importantly, I've always said it's all about the city, and it's whether the public embrace what we do. So we feel that we're going to keep our feet on the ground. We feel that we don't have anything at the moment. I've told my team so. You will the day, and they said, well, when do we know we have something? I said, when the city embrace what we do, because it's up to the city. And if the city embrace it, then we can pat ourselves on the back and say that, look, well done, guys. We've managed to do something in the city that the city love. I think until that moment, we have to be cautious and try our best to make sure that everything is perfect. So that's what we're trying to do for the next few days, and hopefully from the 18th we'll be there. So I have meetings that I have to go to because there's lots going on before I can get up and running.
Still, understandably, and the reason why it was a great segue into celebration is because very, very shortly we're going to have John McDonald radio show. He's one of our winners around inclusion, and what we've been talking about is very much an inclusive sort of approach driven by what brings people together. So what brings people together is food and travel. So, I'm super excited because we're launching our International Trade Centre at Newcastle Airport in January. We're going to have delegations over from Saudi. That's one of the reasons I'm here. And we'll be presenting them food on the quayside and that story and such like as well. So thank you, Jalf. I appreciate it.
Have a great time, Ammar. I'll catch up with you soon.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay. There we have it. There's Jalf. He's having a laugh, leaving me all alone. But hopefully not for very long, because I will have the guest joining me very shortly. And met John at Health and Life Science Pledge event. I'm the chair of the Health and Life Science Pledge. And John is an inclusivity expert. He provides some fantastic insights to how organizations and businesses can make their environments more inclusive and consider those as mobile or as able as others. So I'm going to talk to John. Sure. In the meantime, let's briefly talk about Riyadh and what I'm doing here. So I'm sat directly opposite the Ministry of Economy and Planning, which is incredibly fortunate because it's two things that I'm a huge advocate of, and which is very much the fact that the economy is critical, and there is so much going on here in Saudi. Absolutely delighted and a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to briefly talk about AirView Park. John, the show in a second. He'll be joining us in the next few minutes. So let me push this button and check. Actually. Saudi, I need to move screen. So next time. Remotely, I'm dialing in from thousands of miles. Arguably, some desert-like places and spaces. But actually, the level and the substantive elements of development you will not have seen anywhere comparable to what's going on in the South right now. So let's just the AirView Park, a dynamic new hub that will be launching at Newcastle International Airport, aimed at becoming a global launchpad for businesses, especially for those hailing from Saudi Arabia and strategic locations like Turkey and India and various other spaces and places. AirView Park is just a 2-minute drive from Newcastle International Airport. In fact, you can get off, get a metro, get off, and be there. And there's even, if you're coming on your private jets, there's a private entrance as well, offering excellent connectivity across the UK and Europe. It's strategic location near major transport routes such as the A1, East Coast Rail, makes it highly accessible for international enterprises. The state-of-art facilities, the hub offers 10,000 square feet of customizable grade A office space catering to both established corporations and fast-growing SMEs. AirView Park provides flexible office design tailored to meet diverse operational needs. Part of an enterprise zone, the benefits there, or within an enterprise zone, grant significant incentives like tax breaks and streamlined regulatory support to businesses keen on establishing a UK presence. It's a thriving business ecosystem. So nestled in the heart of the northeast of England, AirView Park is part of a vibrant ecosystem known for innovation in tech, life sciences, and business services. The hub connects businesses with local talent and collaborative opportunities. And there's a huge amount of support for Saudi businesses. So in particular, suited for Saudi entrepreneurs and investors that we're talking to, building those relationships, offering bespoke soft landing packages with insights into the UK market. Collaborating with Saudi Business Links, our partner here in Saudi, AirView Park provides comprehensive support to align business expansion efforts with Saudi Vision 2030. And in summary, AirView Park stands as a gateway to global success, offering unparalleled opportunities for international business expansion. And with its strategic location, tailor-made business and access to a robust business network, AirView Park is poised to be a fulcrum of businesses aiming to grow the UK and beyond. Okay, enough about AirView. Let's bring on our extra special guest right here, John McDonald. He's a disability consultant and, more importantly and critically, an Inclusion by Default Award winner. So let's get John on the show. There is John. Let's see. Here in the forgive me, normally quite more adept at the technology. Doing things remotely real. Saying different. Good morning or good afternoon, John.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, you're probably thinking, well, what's going on? Why is Ammar dressed in the way that he is? Such like, I'm sat in Riyadh, is where I am in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, forgive me if...
no problem, no problem.
Well, wonderful to have you on the show, John. Can you hear me all right?
I can, yes. Thank you.
And let's kick off. So let's start with who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
So I always say this, John, in a nutshell. So the past 20 years, I've worked in... well, first off, thank you again for having me. So me, in a nutshell, I've worked the past 20 years in the healthcare sector. in 2016, I was diagnosed with bowel cancer and fluid on the brain. Bowel cancer, purely surgery, not an issue, not a problem. But then when they drained the fluid off my brain, they filled my head with air. So I officially tell people I'm an airhead now. But I ended up on intensive care, being fully ventilated and the family being prepared for the worst. And from that, it just left me with a few deficits around fatigue and balance issues. And since then, I found it staying in employment was quite difficult. So in 2021, I started Eagles Wings Consultancy to help organisations understand disability in the workplace. Because when it comes to those softer adaptations around fatigue, they're not always as confident. So I'm there to help them, and also to help them understand, as soon as they mention the word adaptations, the first thing people think of is wheelchair and cost, but quite often, you know, the smaller, low-cost adaptations can have such a huge impact. Like I've got a background from my Zoom, which may be able to see, which just says, if I pause, if I have a bit of a timeout, or I may ask to repeat something, it's because my brain's working quite hard, and it's just catching up. The easy way I describe it is, if you've got your computer on, and you have 10 tabs open, your computer slows down a little bit. Mine slows down on 2. And that's how I function. That sometimes I just need to repeat things and say, oh, yeah, I got that. So yeah, I'm happy to encourage and support organisations in disability employment.
Yeah, no, thank you, John. I'm ever so grateful for you sharing that inspirational story, really, in regards to your challenge, your near death experience, to put it bluntly, right? So tell us, John, before we get into what you're doing now and the type of things that got you justly and deservedly to become an award winner at the Inclusion by Default as well. But just I suppose purely from a curiosity perspective, John, tell me. So you were in hospital, and then what happened?
So what happened was when I come out of hospital, it kind of took me. It actually took me a bit of time to realise that my brain injury was affecting me. So one of the things that I was struggling with is that when I'm fatigued, I get clumsy. So I was finding that I was spilling tea just after I'd made a cup of tea, thinking I was clumsy, but actually it was because I was fatigued and I wasn't connecting those dots. And so talking to people around me, they said, you know, it's your brain injury that's affecting me. So then when I made those dots and connections, I was able to put coping strategies in place to make sure that I didn't get fatigued. So I wasn't as clumsy. Sometimes with brain injury, you do lose a little bit of self-insight. So it's having those straightforward conversations of well, what's changed since this. My personality's changed a bit. How I interact changed a bit. So it's being able to be open to that introspective and extrospective points of view to kind of find out who the new me is and how I function. And then putting that into the workplace, how I function in the workplace, how so for me, a lot of stimulus becomes an effect on my fatigue. How I operate as a person. So I've brought those in place to make sure that I can function well. And with those slight changes, and that's the thing, is they didn't have to be big things. Just those little changes to make sure that I'm get me rest, that I'm not over fatigued, that I've got, you know, when I'm out and about, I've got places to stop. I live at the coast. I can tell you where every seat is from time out to Whitley Bay, because I've needed to stop and rest. But it's planning those little things ahead.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And curiosity, and please, you know, feel free not to answer. So, John, before you ended up in hospital, what was your sort of career, profession? What did you do prior to that?
So I'd worked for about 13 years with Marie Curie in the community. Then I'd worked for about 5 or 6 years in neurosurgery high dependency as a healthcare assistant. So I've got that healthcare background. And then I was starting to look at more sort of senior roles within organisations outside of like what I would call the clinical role on the wards. Yeah. So developing that. I've done a little stint in Bulgaria doing some humanitarian work. I lived in Bulgaria for 3 months, doing humanitarian work there, which was a fantastic experience. And then when I came back to the UK from that I started having all the health issues.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And then rather than sort of just living with these changes and things like that, you decided to do something about it to support others, using your caring background, your supportive background. So tell us a little bit about Eagle's Wings consultancy then.
So because of my background and what I've had to take stock of what I can do, where I can still do quite a lot. It's quite interesting. As soon as you mentioned brain injury, the imagery that people come up with of what I would be like as a person, what I can do, what I can't do, and quite often I found the focus was more on what I can't do rather than what I can do. And it's like, well, I can do quite a lot. I just need a little bit of a support in this bit. So that's where I thought I like the idea of an eagle. So an eagle, when it's planning its prey, can hover a mile away from its prey and plan its route in on how it's going to do what it's going to do. When I can sort of like, in a way, hover over a business, see from a distance what needs to be done to be more inclusive, and then come in with a plan to help them develop that. Again, just hovering over them and supporting them in that. So Eagle's Wings has been there. We do training to help disability awareness. I do one-to-one, more of a team talk thing, which can be one-to-one or groups where I actually talk from my own experience. But also it's like get the conversation going about, can I use that language? What's that word like? How do I start a conversation with somebody with a disability? And it's a safe space where we can actually get to those conversations going, and then we can do things like overlooking at policies and procedures, because I strongly believe that if we can have the policies and procedures, but if the culture is not right within the organisation, then they don't get implemented effectively. So will it help bring that culture change?
Yeah, no, wonderful. And I think it's there is that support there, and especially from someone with lived experience, right? Because sometimes, people who are training tend to have done a course somewhere and then would deliver it and have conversations and become inclusivity or whatever type experts and have limited or little lived experience. So talk us through a little bit of that training. What does that look like, John? Can someone expect? And why would somebody reach out to Eagle's Wings consultancy? Like, in what circumstance?
So thank you for that. It is really interesting to come from the lived experience point of view, and I think in a lot of ways I'm different from a lot of people in the fact that, because I got my brain injury later in life, I've got that experience of working in the workplace without a brain injury, and now working with a brain injury. So I can bring those two lived experiences together to help improve conditions for those who have disability in the workplace. The training basically comes around from having a look at what do we classify as disability, what do we consider to be disability, and I also include that a lot of the mental health disability as well. So it's not always just about the physical; it's about the visible and the non-visible disabilities, about the language that we use. I always encourage putting people first wherever we can. So it's a person with a disability rather than a disabled person. So at least then I feel valued as a person, and it's one of those little changes that actually makes a big difference. So again, it's coming back to help organizations realize that as soon as you mention like diversity, as soon as you mention disability, they think it's going to be this huge task to undertake, where actually it's, you might have to build up to if you need such things as accessibility for wheelchairs, then we can look at that. But actually, there's a lot of stuff you can do before that. It's not necessarily going to cost a lot. It's not necessarily going to be difficult to implement, but can have a massive impact. And as an organization, when you start employing people with disabilities, you start having a different outlook, you start thinking in a different way because you start adapting and have adaptive practices. So it helps bring that adaptive practice into the workplace, that people think, oh, well, actually, we can do that different. Can we do this different? And so it increases the diversity of the workforce. It helps me as a disabled person with my mental health, so I feel better, so my health improves in general. And then there's the economic value of having people who with disabilities working. I think at the minute, I think there's the statistics are 4.4 million people with disabilities are working. So if we can continue to work with a small amount of support, we can bring masses of value to an organisation, and that again, that different viewpoint of how to work.
Brilliant. And thank you for sharing. I suppose part of the inclusion by the type of conversation is having people might perceive or deem that a uncomfortable conversation, right? So simple things like, what is a person with a disability? You know, what defines, how do I sort of, you kindly considered me in your business card that you hand out, the visual that you've got behind you, but other times I may not know, oh my gosh, how do I say that to that person in a wheelchair or with a crutch or actually without an arm or without a leg, or there's visible disabilities as well as invisible disabilities. Absolutely. So how do I get comfortable with having that type of conversation?
I normally try and narrow things down to two questions. Is like, how does your disability affect you? What support do you need from me? Just keep it simple. By saying people, what do you need from me? And yeah. I'm my own expert in my own disability. If you ask me what I need, I can rattle it off quick. This is what I need. I need this, this, and this. If you ask someone what do you need from me, they'll rattle it off quick enough. So it's just having that open conversation, being able to say, well, what do you need from me? Do you need anything? Some people might be fine and say, no, I'm good. I'm all right. I can cope with everything. It's not an issue. But just being able to feel comfortable to say, what do you need from me? And certainly for myself, one of the things I do is if I'm working in an office environment, I've got a laminate that says, if you say these symptoms, it's my brain injury affecting me. So sometimes if my brain's affecting me, I can be a little bit grumpy. And, if you're working in an office, if you say, good morning, John, you're like, well, let's leave him alone. But it actually says if I'm grumpy, it could be my brain injury. And then at the end, it says, check in on me. So now you can say, John, are you all right? And I could say, well, I'm just having a bad day. We all have bad days. So, it could just be that. Or I can actually now start to say, oh, well, actually, I've got a bad head. My brain injury is affecting me. I just need another 5 minutes. And now it becomes a natural conversation. So being able to being open to just ask that very basic question of what do you need from me?
And it is a natural.
Let you know, this is what I need. And then we can build policies around that. We can build adaptations around that if need be. But just very simple, what do you need from me is probably the best place to start.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great tip, advice. John, some organizations and people, individuals, don't like the word disabled, from a political correctness part, but actually it says exactly what it is. You're less able, so you have a slight disability. That varies. How do you feel about that? As in how?
Well, I think language is important, and finding the right language. I think where there's always going to be somebody that feels more comfortable or less comfortable with it. but certainly from my own perspective, I can look at it this way. Before my brain injury, I was able to do stuff. After my brain injury, there's some stuff I'm not able to do, so therefore I've been disabled. So it's that kind of like understanding that there's still ability in disability. One of my first posts I ever done on social media was I can't paraglide one-handed while eating cake. There again, neither can most able-bodied people. So as soon as you mention the word disability, the focus tends to shift onto straight away, what can't you do? Instead, so I'm trying to get people to say, well, focus on what people can do, and then we can get the support in for areas that they need a little bit of help and support with. So it's that little bit of a shift of change of what we understand as disability. I think having the word disability, it's a difficult one, and I think we're used to the idea of having disability. When you hear that word, it's the same as when you hear any of the words around inclusion and different things. It's like, what image does that create for you? And that's when we can have that introspective idea of what that means. I stood in front of one group of people and asked them to describe what a person with a brain injury is. And they immediately said, and they were all employers, they immediately said, oh, well, that's somebody who's in a wheelchair, somebody who needs feeding. And I said, that's possible. There is people with brain injuries who need that level of care, but I've got a brain injury. And for all, they were all very apologetic. I said, the difficulty I now have is if you're employers and that's your image of brain injury, I'm in the bin pile as soon as I apply for a job, because that's the concept of what you think somebody with a brain injury is. So what I'm trying to do is let people say that just because somebody's got a disability, and I know some people may feel that word uncomfortable, it just simply means that there's something I need a little bit of support with. That's all. That's all disability means, is like in life, to function at work, to function within life, I just need a little bit of support. And if I get that, I can function fully as anybody else who doesn't have a disability. So I think there's a lot of work to still be done about that wording. And I know some people feel uncomfortable with it, and I never want to. I never like to feel that whatever I've said's made somebody uncomfortable. And it's about having those conversations about, well, why does that make you uncomfortable? What does that word particularly make you feel uncomfortable about? And then we can have in-depth conversations and understanding about what that means and how we can help someone move forward with it.
Yeah, and actually, one of the challenges being an adult is how we struggle being curious, as in young people and children in particular. I love them because of their curiosity. They'll say something different. Oh, why is that person that color? Or why does that person like that? As parents, we go, oh, be quiet, don't say anything. It's like, whereas actually being comfortable with having those type of conversations would lead to more dialogue and more inclusion.
Yes, and that's why I'm very open about my disability. That's why I'm very open about what I do and where I go whenever I'm networking, whether I'm out and about. I'm very open about it. I've got no problem if anybody asks any questions, because it's bringing that into the normal conversation.
Great. John, we're running out of time. Sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to cut. I just wanted to say congratulations at winning the award in the last 10 seconds. What did it mean to you?
It means so much that, so the whole thing's about having cities of belonging where people can feel included in the whole city. The fact that we're making progress in having cities of belonging that are actually going to happen and happening across the UK is fantastic, because it's going to improve the lives for all those with many diversities.
Thank you so much. Congratulations once again, John. Grateful for your time. Hopefully catch up with you when I'm back in the UK. And probably one of the inclusion events or the curriculum or a pledge event, whatever it is, we'll be connecting with you further, more formally as well, and using your activities and approach in our inclusion ID. Thank you ever so much. Take care, John.
Thanks very much, Ammar. Take care now. Bye.